All right. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen and non-binaries, interplanetary, intergalactic time travelers. We salute you. This is Oliver here, and I'm in a Studio 72 that I call a bunker, which is very dramatic and exciting. I just kind of wanted to walk through a few things here today. This lovely Saturday afternoon. A few things that are on my mind. We've had a pretty intense couple of weeks, really, but this last week was even more remarkably intense to me because we had a number of things that have come out, and these are things that independent investigative journalists like George Webb and there's some other people, but Webb's really been on top of this months in advance, connecting Uric, which is a player from the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt. There's some breadcrumbs that need to be stretched. There's a little bit of a reach there as far as tying that in, but Roger Stone, another credible source, mentioned just a day or two about Uric, and this Uric individual has done prison time for harassing, attacking, I believe, MAGA supporters outside of Trump rallies years back. Did prison time, from what I understand. And Roger Stone had said that casually on his X. He was saying that this wasn't directly involved, but that he thought it could be potentially involved, this Uric operator. And then George Webb did a whole bunch of background check on this Uric guy, and he's got his father made a gun and had some connections and knows Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney comes into this play. Is there any other person? Is there any other person that would stand to benefit from global war or war in the Middle East more than the Cheney clan? Than Mr. Gorilla Heart, Dick Cheney, with Halliburton, right? Man, if you don't know who Halliburton is, woo, you missed about 30 years of history. I mean, Halliburton is where Cheney was at the top as he was vice president. Also, very much so wanting the gas and the oil reserves in the Middle East. So it was a conflict of interest, to say the very least. It was a criminal operation to come in, like a mafia, like a cartel, of course, to come in and shake things up, to seize control of the natural resources. I mean, this is obvious. I'm stating something that that should be obvious to everyone. I don't mean to be redundant, but I'm surprised at the level of misunderstanding or cluelessness of people today. Really, I mean, it's just remarkable to me that people are like, Dick Cheney. How does Dick Cheney tie into this? That was way back when. Well, his team, his little assassination team, is still alive and well. Cheney is, believe it or not, after multiple gorilla heart transplants, is still alive and well. Well, I guess that could be debatable. That's questionable whether it's alive and well, but he's living. I mean, like a zombie, the guy's alive. He's woke. He's awoke. But so, you know, some of that you have to kind of digest some of this. And so I threw all that out there right there out of the gate. What I wanted to stress on was the issue in play. It's very clear, is what to believe is real or disinformation or misinformation or just guesses, speculation, things like this. It makes it very, very difficult when you're analyzing current situations, such as significance of an assassination attempt on a president. It's difficult to sometimes discern, most of the time, really to figure out exactly what is true and what's going on. And that is the issue. I believe that the hands in play, whether you want to call it shadow government, you want to call it deep state operatives, you want to call it black hats, white hats. The white hats are supposed to be the good guys. Black hats are bad guys. I kind of fall in somewhere. I think these guys are gray hats for the most part, working for the federal government, whether it's intel ops, especially intel ops. They're just really doing what they're told. But there is some alliances in play. And we've seen that all the way back into the Peter Strzok days, the 2016 with all of these Clinton operatives, Obama operatives. There was Bush Cheney operatives. And in the early days, or first couple of years, you would hear DJT, Donnie, I call him Donnie, that he would reference these different teams that he had beat. Because I beat the Obama people. I beat the Bush people. I beat the Hillary people. I beat them all. And he would say stuff like that. And that's exactly what he was, in my opinion, was referencing, is these literal teams that operate like cartels. So on one of the significant pressing bits of information or intel that came out this last week is something that George Webb has been talking about for months, is these different assassination teams that are present here in the States. Some of them foreign and some of them are domestic. Who is who and what is what? One of the benefits of these psychological operations is no matter who brought it about, who was behind it, who was funding it, all these things, these variables, these unknowns, if you will, and to take Rumsfeld, the diabolical mind, and use that in these military applications, if you will. Why not? We might as well use their own language, their own psyops, their own techniques. We use it right in against them, in my opinion. Why not? It's the art of war. It's right in Sun Tzu, as a matter of fact. Speaking of war, Sun Tzu. But the Cheney cabal and what is real and who's behind it, it's psychological operation. That's where I was. Is that it's almost irrelevant when it comes down to it, whether it was real or not real. The fear is the same. The story when it's released is the same. People that are paying attention will discern. They can kind of read through it. One of the examples is there was an alleged bomb that was supposed to be found out in, I believe it was New Jersey or Long Island. Something about a blue barrel and a bomb and all this and that. That turned out to be false. Turned out to be false intel. So we're hearing things like this. We're in that zone where we're in that zone. I clicked it. I think we're still there. Got to be careful what I'm clicking on. I lost you. But we're in the zone of where it's people are going to be triggered. Mental health issues are in play. I mean, have you ever seen an alleged assassin or would-be assassin that was like solid and together? Right? I mean, aren't they all mentally unstable? And yes, they are. There's a reason for that. It's people with mental health issues, disabilities, and they're easily to program. They're easily to trigger. They're easy to prey on. They're easy to just follow and watch how their depression, following meaning tech, through all their devices. This is what the government does. If you're not aware of that, that's how it happens. It's through these electronic devices. You could track them and you could see what they're saying in chats. You can see where they're depressed or making threats. And the last several attempts with mass shooters here in the States have been people that were trans or non-binary or having some issues about their sexual identity and things like this. And quite often on psychotropic drugs, maybe even on steroids. You ever remember the roid rage? We used to talk about roid rage in the 80s, like all these guys, the wrestlers, all pumped up and the roids and, and they're out on the road. You got this, we used to call it road rage. Well, steroids are being applied to our youth. What is that doing to the brains and the body? Okay. And the psychotropic drugs, what is that doing to the brains, the heart, minds, body? Right. And then you toss in chemical hormones, like things that are used for chemical castrations of criminals, right? Like sex offenders, repeat sex offenders, they'll castrate them. Those drugs are being used for youth to stunt puberty, in essence. Puberty blockers, all these different type of drugs, they've been used in different ways, are now being applied to our youth and young people. And we're seeing the results of this. It's been diabolical and a bloodbath, to lack of better words. we all watch the news, or I'm a high information consumer. So, I mean, those of us who don't watch the news all the time, well, they may not be aware of some of the stuff, but it's there, and the data is there to be consumed. So, what we're seeing, the questions that I have and that we're all asking is who's behind this? So we had Rep. Matt Gaetz, the Florida man. Rep. Matt Gaetz came out and said he's probably gleaning information off of people like George Webb, like I've just mentioned. He came out and said that there's 5 teams. 5 teams. I don't know if he was just throwing that. That's what we know so far. Those are the known unknown assassination teams. 5 teams. And Rep. Gaetz said that his sources are telling him 2 are domestic and the others, or 2 are foreign and 3 are domestic, but something like this. Well, who are they? What is that? So we see this pigeoning. Is it pigeoning? We see this kind of pivot or pinning these aggression and things like this on Iran. Now, I have issues with that because I can see the narrative in play. So I have to digest it. I'm like, well, is that real, or is that just more Mossad type of propaganda that the U.S. is spewing, that Mossad kind of CIA propaganda that Iran, we need to nuke Iran. We got to go in and turn the sand into glass. That's what these war hawks are all pushing, right? Well, it's like I immediately want to, the gag reflex is push back on that narrative of Iran being the bad guys. Now, that doesn't mean that Iran doesn't have some bad guys in there. Doesn't mean that the government isn't all bad guys when it comes to being the U.S. They view us as the aggressor. They're acting in self-defense, whether you approve of them or not. I always like to separate the government from the bad actors. Sometimes we have bad actors in the government. We have that in the U.S. too. We have that here in America. So the same thing. Why would we apply that thinking, that critical analysis to us and our own country, or to these other foreign countries like Iran, with the Hezbollah funding and everyone else, Yemen, all the rest of the actors, Russia, China, all the rest of it? Why wouldn't we apply that same type of critical analysis to them as we would to our own government? Okay, because we've been infiltrated. We've been infiltrated. We have cells of these groups, as Rep. Matt Gaetz is referring to 5 teams, okay, where we've got Ukrainian money laundering ops. We've got this guy, Ryan Ruth. I always want to pronounce his last name like 5 different ways. But who was a Ukrainian recruiter. He's got Pakistani connections as far as recruiting Pakistani and Afghani. We've got these other players that also have Pakistani. Now they're trying to connect and say that is Iranian funded and Iran is working with these operatives. Now they could just be bad guys. They could just be bad mojos, and they just happen to be in that country, like this merchant guy. Which I've got a couple of tags, but every time I click on these, it doesn't come in on this StreamYard type of application here on my phone. When I click on the, last time I did this, on the article, when I clicked on the article, it froze me in my frame as I read from it, but you could hear my voice. So I'm not sure why, but that might be the case, because I do want to check out a couple of those links. So to not be rambling, but to kind of clarify my bullet point here, is that where I'm analyzing in myself, speaking out loud, doing this video about who is behind what. And as we have these horrific aggressions from Israel and Mossad, who is attacking and assassinating in Iran, high-level Hamas and Iranian allies and officers, generals and lieutenant generals in their own countries. We have Israel doing this. Why would we not expect blowback? I mean, this is basic, the element and art of war. It's beyond it. What I'm trying to say is that it's obvious that retaliation is the combat, whether it's in the streets or whether it's different countries. It's historically, it's combat. Retaliation is anticipated. That's what makes war war. When you go out and do something, you go and blow up a cell's pagers, for example, like we just saw here with this weird exploding pagers. I thought it was cell phones. And then they were talking about walkie-talkies. What really throws out a monkey wrench on that whole thing is, for me, is the solar panels. So, or the electrical battery type for solar panels or solar energy were exploding on top of Lebanese homes in families, on top of their families. That seems odd to me. That seems really odd. So that's beyond, that kind of implies like maybe a microwave type of weapon, some sort of laser, some sort of directed energy weapon type of thing. To me, with the amateur, I'm just spraying that out there. It's just my opinion. I don't have the data on it. But when you're now seeing lithium batteries explode on top of rooftops of families with solar apparatus for home energy systems, that's beyond packing explosives in some Taiwanese shipment of pagers or walkie-talkies. I mean, it's possible that's what they did with the explosives, but it's also possible that I suggest, in my thinking, my frame of mind, is that it could have been some sort of direct energy weapon, some sort of microwave weapon that could be targeted and zapped in broad, like a paintbrush. You could have a big one. You could have more fine-tuned. There could be a connection. I find it remarkable coincidence that we have people in the bleachers behind Donnie in Arizona that are now damaged or harmed with burned skin or burned eyes, which kind of feels like a, Clinton Havana syndrome type of thing, the Clinton syndrome, if you will, where it's somehow burning the eyes, the ears, the skin. Again, it kind of indicates some sort of a microwave type of weapon, in my amateur opinion. Is it coincidence, remarkable coincidence, if you will, that that's happening at a rally at the exact same time pagers are blown up from Lebanese hashish dealers, if you will, using 1990s type of pagers to reach their hashish customers? I remember a Lebanese hashish in the 80s here in Portland. That's why I say that jokingly. But is there some sort of a connection with those type of weapons? I always thought that there was this week, meaning days, but there's also computer hacks and things that, like we've seen with Michael Hastings, I believe was a murder, where his car accelerated and then exploded into a ball of fire. It really is a heads up, brothers and sisters. It's really a heads up. If they can do that there on those targeted hits, they can do it to any one of us, especially in these new vehicles. These lithium battery are really ticking time bombs. And it would just take some sort of a zap, a microwave, a laser to heat up that battery to a point where it would ignite. They're doing it on their own. If they're doing it on their own, it sure in the hell ain't going to take a whole lot from an outside force to trigger that spark, or there's a name for it. I'm not the science guy. It's a reverse charging, whatever that, there's a word for it. Sorry, I can't remember. It's not a complicated one, but it triggers that lithium battery where they heat up and you can't reverse it. They can't cool. So it's working hotter than it is cooling down, and boom, it's happening in scooters. It's been happening in cell phones. It's been happening in laptops. Anything with a lithium battery, this can happen. It makes you wonder how much of that is targeted and how much of that will be targeted in the future, right? I mean, if you have talking heads and politicals that are like Hillary Clinton, for example, Secretary Clinton, talking about putting people in internment camps and arresting people for free speech, arresting people for memes that are critical of this new world order and all of this globalist agenda that they've got going, it makes you wonder how much of this is going to be used in the future, and how quickly and how widespread. That's where my brain goes, because it would not be difficult to do. It's not complicated. With the Michael Hastings, to tap into a computer, you can hit the brakes, you can hit the gas, you can make the brakes not work. And, you know, there's a whole story there. If you don't know about the Hastings, the Rolling Stone piece, that was several years ago. In fact, it was more than that. I think it was over 10 years ago, but I was just reading it and I was like, God, this really was a while back. It happened. And he had some sort of inside feed and was communicating with some whistleblowers, which the government knows who you're talking with. The government's following all of your moves, especially if you're a journalist that's critical of deep state operations. They know where these whistleblowers are contacting and going. You better believe that they're monitored. Whoever they're calling or texting or emailing, you better believe that those on the inside, those guys are well monitored. Even if you, as a Mickey Mouse journalist or a Mickey Mouse commentary on doing a live stream, is insignificant. You get wrapped up into that by who is contacting you, and they know all of that. They follow all that. That was Edward Snowden brought that. I think it was Prism. Some of these other code names, these operations that are collecting all of the data. And people are saying, well, they can't separate the data from this or that. It's a drift net. Well, several years ago, that might have been true from what I'm understanding now. Again, I'm not a tech, I'm not in the business. I mean, I know a little bit about science, but it is possible to drift net. We have things that are called man in the middle type of apps and drones that do circles. The man in the middle is going to lift up all that cell phone data, and we see things through channels like MonkeyWorks and some of these other, I consider them whistleblowers, but people that do know what they're talking about and have been in the business, airplanes and intel and things like this. You can see this on radar. You can see the man in the middle, the planes circle, the drones, even in large part drones, and even balloons. So they got these balloons. You can see these balloons at 80,000 feet. They're just sitting up there, big balloons all over the country every single day. So this whole Chinese balloon hysteria, it's almost comical. If it wasn't so damn tragic, if it wasn't so damn sad that our own government is doing that and much, much more than what we saw there with that Chinese balloon. So there's a lot going on there. I'm kind of mixing some of my talking points here, just kind of getting it out, going with the flow. But so we have Gates coming out and saying what the independent researchers have been talking about with multiple assassin teams. Who's behind that, and who would want to see a peacemaker like Donnie taken out? You know, who's been openly talking about, I'll bring peace before I'm even sworn in with the Slavic Civil War, Ukraine and Russia. They're like, oh, hell no. We're going to make billions and billions of dollars over here. What are you talking about? And then you got the world leaders that are saying, world leaders, they think they're leaders, but the world kind of cabal, kind of these globalists, I'm not really sure you could call them leaders. It sounds weird even saying that about some of these sociopaths. But these folks that have got the money and they're pulling some purse strings, they are in favor of eugenics. We can't deny the population control. It's just plain as all day. If you haven't read that, look into eugenics, look into population control. This is all a part of the agenda. It's not conspiracy because they write about it in Agenda 2030, World Economic Forum, United Nations. I mean, this is stuff that Alex Jones on InfoWars has been talking about. People said he was an insane loon, calling the frogs gay and all this and that. All Jones was doing was reading their own records. He was reading all of their files and their agenda. That's how he knew what they were doing. That's how he knew that they were coming out with this type of operation with the jabs and the mRNA. They wrote about it. Operation Lockstep. So back to this Operation Mongoose. Now, I I remember hearing Operation Northwoods with the Cubans. Okay, this is John F. Kennedy, the assassination of President Kennedy. There was an Operation Mongoose that was using the Cubans to come in, working with Teamsters and unions. God bless those Teamster unions, right, baby? The mob, organized labor, organized business, organized mob. Mongoose was using Cubans in that menagerie or alliance, if you will, lack of a better word, alliances, trying to take out the Kennedy brothers, and did take out the Kennedy brothers. So when you think about like that, if we're looking at a Mongoose 2.0, what would Operation Mongoose 2.0 look like? It would look something like what we just witnessed with this Ryan Root. Flew into Ukraine, wanted to volunteer, or did volunteer. Maybe he was in charge of something other than the bullets on the front line. It looks like he was in charge of recruitment, maybe even public relations, some sort of communications director, who knows? But it looks like he was tapped, and it looks like he's working with the Nazis. That's pro-Nazis. That's Azov Battalion. There's pictures of him with that Nazi flag. Bandera-loving Nazis have been talking about this for 2 years. People have treated us like we are lunatics talking about gray frogs, frogs too, for that matter. But it's all practical, logical. It may sound like nonsense and jibber jabber. You give it enough time, and now we're seeing these things come to fruition. These are manifesting right in front of us. Ukraine Nazi recruiter sympathizer hiding in the bushes, hole 5, hole 6, looking to with some sort of a weapon. There's dispute on what kind of a weapon it is. It was originally said an AK-47. I'm not a weapons guy. I'm not even going to pretend I know. But I did see that there has been back and forth about what kind of a weapon it was, what kind of automatic type of rifle that was. Bottom line is this crazy mofo with some sort of sugar mama in Hawaii that's financing, who's she? You know, they said, oh, we're going to look into her. You know what? I would take a little look-see-poo at her. You got whoever she is. We haven't seen a picture of her at all. I don't even know if we know her name. I think I read her name somewhere. But they said, oh, we're going to take a look at her. Really? Because she's the sugar mama. She's got the money. You know, dumb nuts here with half a blue head and half a gold for his Nazi flag haircut. Woo-wee. This guy is, who knows where his money is. You know, he could be the type of guy that's got some things. I think he's intel. And I think that these Ukraine, these Nazi guys, Nazi sympathizers, Azov Battalion, Bandera 11, Ukraine fuckwads, they are connected to the Rhino deep state like Dick Cheney. So these are the Dick Cheney attack teams, in my opinion. Now, the Iranian is a totally different situation, or is it? Who knows? I mean, you know, if we had Obama sending hundreds of millions of dollars to Iran, we sure in the hell could have Cheney or some other back channels funneling all kinds of tens of millions of dollars for different causes. It happens like that. Not that I'm an expert, but we've seen this before. We know that people fund both sides. We've seen this with ISIS. We've seen this with Al-Qaeda over and over and over again. If you don't know that, you got to do a little bit of digging. Drinking my iced coffee here. Not so cold anymore. That's all right, though. But so who's funding who and who's behind what? We can't leave out Dick Cheney in all of this discussion and his people. So, and who did they want? Who was Dick Cheney and Jeb Bush? Whose campaign was Jeb Bush working on? The Bush crime family. Ron DeSantis, Governor Ron DeSantis, right there in the thick of it with all of his top donors financing his primary run against Donald J. Trump. All those folks are now, who are they doing? They're voting for Kamala. Imagine that. That's remarkable shit. You've got all these neocon clowns coming out publicly campaigning. Dick Cheney pitching his money, cash, ballot behind the Democrats, the globalists, wrapped up in this World War IV. I call it four. I think World War III's already happened. Through the proxies for 20 years over there in the Middle East, everybody was on the dance floor. That was World War in my book. I'm not a historian, but and then somebody was telling me, I think even AJ was saying that the CIA says that World War III happened and this is World War IV. I don't know. But it feels that way to me. That's why I say it. And these guys, they want this war. They want this. I mean, it's like, think about how diabolical you got to be to want radiation poisoning for the planet. Because that's what we're looking at with a nuclear holocaust. That's what, with me, it's got an independent like me that's got fired up and backing Donnie. It's like, people are like, well, why are you backing him? You're not a Republican. What's your trip? And it's like, I'm for peace. I'm a peacenik. I'm a peace activist. Unless it's self-defense, we should not be dicking around with any of these and we shouldn't be instigating world wars. That's exactly what's happening here with this Slavic civil war against Putin. And, that people say, oh, well, you're a Putin sympathizer. I'm for pro-peace. If that means we're going to need to reach out and deal with Putin, if that means that I want to see a table with Putin and his generals, sit down with a peace posse, if you will, of whoever it is, Kash Patel, or whoever's with Trump, whoever's representing the U.S. after we sweep the elections and then we're going to have to secure the White House and because even after November, we're going to have 60 days of chaos, right? There's going to be anarchy and all kinds of weird shit. I mean, these people are not going to go down in a way easy. We know that. It's going to be another level of chaos at the Capitol, which has nothing to do with Trump, has nothing to do with MAGA, has nothing to do with American First, doesn't even have anything to do with a bunch of dipshit FBI informatives like Proud Boys or all the rest of these other usual suspects on there. Who were some of these? I'm drawing a blank on the Joe Biggs guy. He was in another big one that were all infiltrated. It's going to be beyond even those dipshits and dumbnuts. Okay, this is going to be crazy shit. Even after we battle it out over the illegal ballots in November 5th, November 6th, November 5th, November 6th. So the general election. So I've heard people talking about that, and it resonated with me because it's spot on. It is spot on. It's even after the general election. Then we have another 2 months of battles, 2 months of attempted assassinations of multiple players, not just one guy, not just our guy, lots of our guys, lots of our people. It's going to be ugly. So, and one of the things that was on my mind as I was looking through it, I'm like, what is real about this Iranian connection? And this Hezbollah, is Hezbollah really into dealing drugs? Is Hezbollah working with the drug cartels in from South America and from all over the world, but through Central America and Mexico, running the drugs up through the open border? It looks like they have in the past. Now, I found a number of articles that were talking about 10 years ago. I'm going to click on this here. An Iranian operative. Okay, so that was this one here. This was 3 weeks ago. Cartels drop bombs from drones, set vehicles on fire in Michoacan, El Paso, Texas. Authorities in the Mexican state of Michoacan say they have restored order after criminal gangs blocked roads, set vehicles on fire, and reportedly attacked a police station with explosive devices dropped by drones. Well, who taught them to use drones? It could very well be Hezbollah. It could very well be these people that have, for 10 years ago, were saying they were a part of the Lebanese hashish drug cartels in Mexico. And now I was read an article or two that was talking about that the Hezbollah is teaching the cartels how to blow up cars, how to use drones and blow up people. And here it is, 3 weeks ago. Earlier in the day, Mexican news media said drones bombed the police station in Buena Vista. Proceso reported 3 explosions, but no injuries. Wow. This action was followed by shootings, highway blockades, and the burning of vehicles. Citing unnamed police resources, El Financiero attributed the attacks to fighting between criminal gangs identified as Los Viagras, Cartel de Vuelo, Templar Knights, that's a hell of a drug cartel name, and the larger Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, Jalisco New Generation Cartel. The Jalisco Cartel for years has been fighting local groups for control of drug trafficking and other criminal activities in Tierra Caliente region of Mexico, which includes portions of Oaxaca, Guerrero, and Mexico State. So the Mexico documented 260 drone attacks involving explosive devices in 2023. So 260 drone attacks 1 year, last year, according to the Minister of Defense. Most of the attacks have been attributed to the Jalisco cartels. How they know that, I'm not totally sure. But that article should be in the show notes. There's another article in there talking about it. So that right there, when I see the drones, now, granted, maybe nobody taught the cartels. Maybe they taught themselves, right? I mean, it's not really all that difficult to have a drone with a catch and release. They're just releasing explosives. You got drones with the camera, and you got drones with GPS. When you got cartel money, you can buy the top of the top. My gut instinct tells me that there is some other intervention in play there. There is a foreign country, and it probably is someone like Iran or Pakistan or Hezbollah through these type of Iranian funding type of apparatus. And I use the drone as an example to prove that the technology has been greatly updated, to say the least. Now, the articles I was reading 10 years ago, that really goes back into Obama's Fast and Furious, which I found it kind of interesting that Hezbollah was in the mix of running the drugs right where they should be, right? Because Obama's there. Obama and Hezbollah. If you don't know about that, there's a great article. I should dig that one up and post it. Right there with the funding, Fast and Furious. That's the Obama drugs coming in, guns going down south. We caught him. AG Eric Holder, we caught him red-handed. They denied and lied that it was happening. It turns out that it was happening. He gets a slap on the wrist. AG, that was treason. Treason and activity funding Operation Fast and Furious. Guns down, drugs up. Now, why would Obama want to do that? And why would Hezbollah be right there involved reaping the drug cash benefits? I mean, let's just put it together. Do we need the breadcrumbs laid out any more direct? I mean, that is pretty remarkable if that's true. Now, I am one to, and I am not an expert. It's just I'm going by gut instincts, intuition. Sometimes I'm wrong. But I personally believe that Iran might be, or Iran's clearly funding many of these operations, whether it's Houthis and the rebels blowing up ships and all this crap, or Hezbollah or Hamas. They could be financing the funds to them. They could even be a part of the rat lines of the weapons. But I'm not convinced that the mullahs are sitting in a control tower giving, walkie-talkie and cell phone commands step by step of what they can attack and what they can do and what the operation should look like. It could happen like that because I just don't know. I'm so, I'm out of the loop. I have no idea. I don't have any intel sources that are feeding me information. Who does? Right? Email me it's so that's dangerous. I mean, any kind of inside intel, my God. I mean, it would be dangerous to even receive that email, more or less read it and try to think you can go about it, write about it. But it's possible. It's possible that they're funding, and it's possible that they may be micromanaging. That's the word I was looking for. Micromanaging. I don't actually believe that the mullahs are micromanaging these events. Now, you could argue, does it matter if they're micromanaging? They're funding it. Doesn't that make them culpable? Doesn't that make them an accessory? I mean, that's an argument that could be made there. They look at as self-defense. They're defending against this Israeli aggression that is assassinating their generals in their capitals, on their land, in their country, on their sandhill. And why would Israel be doing that unless they want to instigate and create this type of chaos? This makes things very, very dangerous for us in the States. Obviously, I'm stating obvious type of stuff. We're just going over it, speaking it out loud. The border is wide open. Why would anybody with the Department of Homeland Security, why would anybody around Kamala, VP Harris, or this crazy motherfucker Walls, Governor Walls, why would anybody around them not be aware that the border's wide open and we've got all of these terrorists and these operatives that want to come and destroy us for retaliation of what Israel, Mossad, and Shin Bet, and whoever, why do you know what the fuck's going on? I mean, I know a little bit, but who the fuck knows how deep? If they're intercepting pagers and walkie-talkies and blowing up families because of pagers and walkie-talkies, who the fuck knows what they're doing? I mean, it's really, who does that? It's never been done before. Not that I'm aware of. Not with walkie-talkies and pagers. Certainly with cars. Just brought up the Michael Hastings as a perfect example of that. But, this is very, very serious, and we need to analyze that. Because if Iran and Hezbollah is a part of, in Pakistan, what's that marriage? What's that relationship go, right? Because we know Pakistani operatives. We've got them. That's another one of the articles I should have put down on your in my show notes. Sorry, an Iranian operative has been charged in a plot to murder former U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton. So this one goes back 2022, but they're talking about January of 2020 was the target on Bolton. This is, I don't know how you could have forgotten, but you have to remember that we blew up Soleimani, one of their top generals, which was a total dumb nuts move, in my opinion, because he was actually destroying terrorists. He was actually destroying ISIS. And so we go and assassinate the guy that's destroying the bad guys. Stupid as all fuck. Not to mention, there's going to be retaliation. And it looks like here, Iran sent out Shahram Persafi. Shahram Persafi? I have no idea. I don't know the culture or language. Identified by U.S. officials as a member of Iran's paramilitary Revolutionary Guard, is currently wanted by the FBI on charges related to murder for hire plot. Prosecutors say the scheme unfolded more than a year ago of Qasem Soleimani, the head of the Revolutionary Guard elite Quds force, an architect of Tehran's proxy wars in the Middle East, was killed in a targeted airstrike as he traveled from Baghdad's international airport in January of 2020. After the strike, Bolton, who by then had left his White House post, tweeted, "Hope this is the first step to regime change in Tehran," end quote. So these guys make all of our lives more dangerous. And it's Bolton and Cheney and all the rest of these neocons and a whole gaggle of Democrat neoliberal, neocon war hawks in around right now, probably running the country. Everybody's like, well, who's in charge? Who's running the country? It's probably those guys, these military in Cheyenne Mountain, probably in the great underground bunker force in Cheyenne Mountain, Wyoming. Probably Dick Cheney there with his gorilla arts and Darth Vader mask and oxygen. Right? You know, I mean, you can just see Cheney there with those little gorilla hearts pumping. And these guys are probably the ones that are the continuity of government. We're dealing with COG. I think we're in that now. And it's possible that we might even have consecutive continuity of government if we're talking about multiple teams that has come to light. Multiple teams of continuity of government. Do we have overlapping layers of continuity of government? Is that possible? It is possible. And I'm just throwing that out there. Something we need to analyze. So we need to figure out, is Hezbollah working with the drug cartels today? Because we've got all kinds of that history from 10 years ago plus. Operation Fast and Furious, just to repeat myself, we know for a fact Hezbollah was in the mix of all that. Fact. Today, are they today? Is it currently? Have we hit the baseball bat on the hornet's nest of Hezbollah special ops? The border's wide open. The border's wide open. This is way beyond just Mexicans fulfilling jobs that the neoliberal Democrats think that need to happen. I keep hearing stuff about, oh, who's going to pick the vegetables and who's going to clean the hotels. Way beyond that. Way beyond that ignorant fucking bullshit. We're talking about 150 plus countries. People from all over the world coming straight into the border. We know they're attacking our girls. We know that they've raped and bashed their heads in because we have them arrested. One of those is too many, in my opinion. So we have the sex offenders. We have the rapists. We have the sociopathic, homicidal whack jobs on record. It gets worse than those guys. It gets worse than those guys because we're talking about mass casualty incidents of great destruction is on the horizon. And this isn't fear-mongering. It is in a way, but it's factual. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just trying to tell you what the situation is. I'm not trying to persuade you one way or another. This is the facts. The border's wide open. We have tens, and even worse than the border being wide open, we have tens of millions that have now been flown into the country. When I first started talking about that 18 months ago, a year ago, everyone's like, dude, you're a xenophobic fucking whack job right-winger lunatic. There's nobody flying. Biden's not you dumb fuck. There's nobody flying anybody into the country. What are you talking about? Catholic Charities flying people into the country. Look at it now, dipshit. Look at the data and the facts now, dipshit. Who was the one that didn't know what he was talking about? The ground reports and cables were accurate, are accurate. Fact. Catholic Charities was flying children where we have hundreds of thousands of children that are now missing, unaccounted for. We have no idea where they went, not even a serial number, not even a barcode. They're gone. Poof, vanished. Child human trafficking, poof, gone, vanished. Where are they? Who are they working for? Are they sex slaves? We have children as sex slaves in this country, and the Biden-Kamala regime is responsible for it. How the fuck could they be ignorant not to know that it's happening? How could I, an artist in Portland, Oregon, know and see the data and see what's happening here with the truth, and they not know when they're in the industry with all of that spy apparatus at their disposal? Right? Come on. It's obviously intentional. And it's disgusting. This country will not last 4 more years of these policies and this type of lunacy. And it's corrupt. It is obviously corrupt. It's immoral. It's unethical. I mean, think of the children. Think about the women. Think about the journey. We need to secure the border, and we need to keep these assassination teams out. By the way, these assassination teams, they could care less whether it's Republican or Democrat targets. They want Americans. They want high-profile targets, and they want to make it hurt, make it sting, make international news. They don't care if it's Republican or Democrat. And we see that with the Google searches, the different targets that are mentioned with Crooks, Thomas Matthew Crooks, Butler, Pennsylvania. They let some of that data leak on out. He was looking at Democrats' gatherings and conventions and players as well. So you've got the mentally ill being groomed and programmed and kind of taken by the hand and walk with us over here to the gun club. We're going to teach you how to shoot rifles. You like rifles, don't you? I know you do, Tommy. All right. We're going to pay for all your rifle training. Right? So, and that looks like that's exactly what's happened over here in Ukraine, where you've got recruitments. We have Americans are being called mercenaries. They're being swooped up, flown in, and then we got Nazis that are being flown in. Biden has, this isn't talked about, but Biden has flown in hundreds of thousands of Nazis, Nazi refugees, Nazi family members, flown them in. Just as he has unscreened and unvetted, he's flown in the Afghanistans, hundreds of thousands of Afghanis. Then you've got airplane loads coming in of God only knows Haitian voodoo, cat blood sucking, horse meat eating, God only knows, the sociopaths that want to fuck us up, flying them right on in. Why? Who would do that? Who would do that cares about the Americans? Who would do that who cares about the American country in itself as a whole? You don't do things like that if you care about America and its people. That tells you right there the intentions, the motives, and these dark ops players that have come to light. America needed to hear it from Rep. Matt Gaetz, then that's great. George Webb was saying it long before that we got independent investigative journalists that are the screws, the bolts, and the nuts of all of this intel investigation of what's happening. And it's very, very clear that we've got the Cheney cabal wrapped up with the Bush cabal. You know, a lot of people are like, how could you say that about Governor Ron DeSantis? Ron's pulled in on this, whether he's for the Nazis. Oh my God. Governor DeSantis is pulled in. He's going to act like he's going to investigate and get to the root of it. Yeah, right? Well, all the paths lead straight to Ron DeSantis top donors. My God. It's a stretch. Follow the breadcrumbs. Follow the money, as they all say. We know that that's true. We know that that's true. There's no question about it. Anybody that's studied Dick Cheney taking over in 9/11, 2001, the continuity of government. I mean, most people know that Dick Cheney was the brains of the operation, not coked up Bush Jr., not little coked up Bushy Jr. No, it was Cheney that was running the operations, the globalists with the Halliburton and the foreign policy of lunacy, death, and destruction. That's Cheney cabal. And those people don't just change their minds about how they want to do things just because they're not in office any longer. He's right there. Right there. You can see it. I can visualize it. I can sense it. And I can see that his little group of people, these little rhinos, they're acting like they're neocons. What are they? Who are they backing now? They got done with Ron DeSantis in the primary. Now they're going to back Kamala and a Maoist lunatic governor, Walz, from Minnesota. Actions speak more than words, don't they? That's where they're at. So it's pretty intense. I'm approaching an hour. It's a long-winded. I think I covered most of those points that I wanted to hit on. We've got established at least five kill teams, whack teams, assassination teams. We've got some that are foreign. Now we still don't have the details of who's funding who's deploying who. We've got some leads because we see where they've been. We see what they've done. We see who they were recruiting from. And all of that is there's black hats in the intel operations that know damn well what's going on and who these people are and what they'll do and what they want to do or what they're capable of. If you just simply send them on an assignment, they're going to hide in the bushes in a golf course with metal plates and some sort of aging, half rusted out AK-47 like he did. And we're going to have more of these actors. And so it's important to analyze where are they coming from, who's behind them, who are these kill teams, and how do we keep Donnie safe. And it's not just until the election. As I've said, I'm repeating myself because it's very significant. We've got 60 days or whatever it is after November, December, then January that we have to keep him safe, and we have to battle, push back in self-defense the deep state lunatics that they're going to unleash upon this country and upon us. It is what it is. There's no mistaking about it. You need to be prepared for it because it's real. It's not just fear-mongering. It's not just delusions. We know it's coming. Look what happened in 2020, 2022, 2024. So anyway, I think that is 55 minutes and 55 seconds. I think that's the bulk of what I wanted to get off my chest. Those links should be in the show notes. We're in dangerous times, and it certainly is a time where we have to take care of our heart, our head, and our mind and our soul. However combination you do those, whatever it works for you to keep that in check, you need to do that. It usually comes through meditation or prayer, and it comes through whatever type of vitamin supplement, type of stress reliever that works for you. All right. You're going to need it. It ain't going to get easier. You got to buckle up. This is just getting started. So God bless. Peace out.